March 12, 1944. 0600 hours. A forward airfield near the French coast. Dawnlight glints off metal fuselages lined in neat rows. The air smells of gasoline, oil, and damp earth, pierced by the distant roar of aircraft engines warming up. German pilots, captured or observing from a distance, lean against their worn leather flight jackets, eyes wide with disbelief. Before them, American ground crews move with almost mechanical precision. A P-47 Thunderbolt, riddled with flak damage from the previous day's bombing run over Berlin, rests on jacks. Panels are removed, engines dismantled, hydraulics checked, and a shattered canopy replaced. All within hours. Mechanics carry tools in synchronized rhythm, passing spare parts like clockwork components. By the time the sun rises fully, the plane rolls out, engines purring, ready for another sortie. For the German pilots, this is surreal. In the Luftwaffe, similar repairs could take days, sometimes a week or more. To witness a heavily damaged aircraft restored in the span of a morning challenges every assumption they have about speed, efficiency, and industrial capability. In this quiet, sunlit chaos, the reality of American logistical supremacy becomes painfully clear. By 1943, the air war over Europe had reached a critical stage. The Luftwaffe, once a formidable force, was struggling to maintain operational readiness. Constant Allied bombing raids, the attrition of experienced pilots, and shortages of spare parts had begun to erode their ability to sustain air operations. German fighter planes, Messerschmitt Bf-109s, Focke-Wulf FW-190s, were advanced machines, but complex systems and labor-intensive repairs meant that damage often grounded aircraft for days or even weeks. Even minor flak hits could sideline a plane, with maintenance crews struggling under pressure, lacking parts, or improvising repairs in field conditions. The logistical bottleneck was becoming as lethal as enemy fire. Meanwhile, the United States Army Air Forces had developed a radically different approach. Drawing upon the immense industrial capacity of the American war machine, the U.S. emphasized speed, standardization, and mass production not only in aircraft construction, but in maintenance. Forward airfields across England, France, and later liberated territories were equipped with specialized repair teams. These crews operated under strict protocols, trained to replace damaged components, repair engines, and restore flight control systems within hours. Where the Luftwaffe relied on painstaking craftsmanship, the Americans relied on systematic processes, interchangeable parts, and round-the-clock shifts. The difference was striking. For a damaged P-47 Thunderbolt or B-17 Flying Fortress, what might have grounded a German plane for multiple days could be restored in a single morning by American mechanics. Ground crews worked in coordinated units, engine specialists, airframe technicians, electrical teams, and armament crews all moving in precise choreography. Parts were delivered on trucks or improvised trolleys, tools were standardized, and supervisory officers ensured that repair sequences followed strict timelines. Efficiency was measured in sortie readiness, not pride in labor. Beyond the technical, there was a cultural dimension. German pilots were trained in a system that prized individual skill and attention to detail. Repairs were often done by the same craftsmen who had built the planes, with meticulous adjustments and careful calibration. While this produced precision, it was slow. In contrast, the American system treated aircraft as modular machines. Procedures were codified. Responsibilities divided, and speed became the highest priority. Damage assessment, disassembly, replacement, and testing were performed as routine, unromantic tasks, yet with extraordinary results. Forward airfields themselves reflected this philosophy. Large hangars were augmented with temporary tents, mobile workshops, and assembly lines for parts. Crews slept nearby, ate on site, and rotated in shifts. Mechanized vehicles delivered engines and wings. Cranes and jacks lifted damaged planes efficiently. The goal was singular: keep planes flying. This relentless focus on readiness allowed the 8th and 9th Air Forces to sustain heavy bombing campaigns over Germany, knowing that losses could be mitigated not by replacing pilots alone, but by restoring the aircraft they flew. The result was a striking operational advantage. German pilots, observing American repair speeds either after being captured or while stationed near airfields, were stunned. What they considered normal downtime stretched over days or weeks. The Americans achieved in hours. By late 1943, this difference became increasingly decisive. German airfields could not match the tempo, creating gaps in air defense and contributing to mounting losses. The Luftwaffe's attrition was no longer only in the skies. It was on the ground, where planes sat idle, awaiting repairs that never came fast enough. The scene of damaged American aircraft, restored by dawn, would become a recurring sight for German aviators. It symbolized not only industrial prowess, but a mindset, efficiency, coordination, and relentless execution. These were qualities embedded in American maintenance doctrine, from the factory floor to the forward airfield, a stark contrast to the Luftwaffe's slower, more painstaking approach. For German pilots, it was a revelation, one that would redefine their understanding of air power, logistics, and the pace at which war could be fought. This foundation of industrial capacity, tactical repair efficiency, and operational culture sets the stage for the next section, where we examine the American logistical system in detail and the cultural implications it had on German observers. The backbone of American air power was not only planes, but the infrastructure that kept them in the sky. By 1944, the U.S. Army Air Forces had developed a sophisticated network of depots, forward repair stations, and mobile workshops. Each unit followed a strict hierarchy. Maintenance officers oversaw teams. Mechanics specialized in engines, airframes, hydraulics, and electrical systems, while parts officers ensured that spare components were always on hand. This structure created an environment where even extensive damage could be addressed efficiently and without delay. Forward airfields in England, and later in liberated France, became hubs of this system. P-47s and P-51 Mustangs returning from combat were immediately assessed for damage. Minor repairs were performed on the spot. More extensive repairs were sent to nearby depots where modular systems, wings, landing gear, or engines could be swapped in hours. A bullet-riddled engine, scorched control surfaces, or shattered windshields were no longer obstacles to rapid redeployment. Parts were produced in quantity back in the United States and shipped worldwide, ensuring supply lines never stalled. By contrast, the Luftwaffe struggled with raw material shortages, bombed-out factories, and the limitations of a centralized repair culture that required skilled craftsmen and deliberate, time-consuming work. German pilots, witnessing these operations, were often incredulous. Stories from captured aircrew highlight repeated moments of astonishment. Planes that had been shot up during morning missions were fully operational by afternoon, ready for a return sortie. The speed of repairs directly affected tactical outcomes, where Luftwaffe fighters often remained grounded after even minor combat damage. American aircraft maintained near-continuous sortie capability, creating a cumulative advantage in both numbers and air presence. This logistical superiority was enabled by American industrial doctrine. Interchangeable parts, modular designs, and standardized procedures allowed less skilled mechanics to perform tasks that would otherwise require highly trained specialists. Training emphasized both speed and accuracy, but individual craftsmanship was subordinated to system-wide efficiency. Ground crews, rotating in shifts around the clock, treated repairs as routine, yet each action contributed to a broader operational tempo that German pilots could neither match nor fully comprehend. Beyond mechanics, cultural factors amplified the effect. German aviators were trained to respect meticulous workmanship, where even small deviations could compromise performance. American crews approached repairs pragmatically. Planes were machines, and the objective was to return them to flight status as quickly as possible. This utilitarian philosophy, combined with an abundance of parts and manpower, created a shockingly different approach to warfighting. For captured or observing Luftwaffe pilots, the sight of a severely damaged aircraft rolling down the runway, fully repaired within hours, challenged deeply ingrained notions of precision, pride, and the limits of human capability. The operational results were clear. By mid-1944, air campaigns over Germany, including the critical bombing missions over Schweinfurt, Berlin, and other industrial targets, relied on the Americans' ability to maintain aircraft at an unprecedented tempo. Continuous sorties, rapid turnaround, and high serviceability rates placed the Luftwaffe under constant pressure. Pilots were no longer just fighting the air. They were fighting the unrelenting efficiency of the Allied maintenance system, a system they could see but could not match. This context sets the stage for the angles that illuminate the human, tactical, technological, and psychological dimensions of American repair supremacy, and the profound impact it had on German pilots observing it. For German pilots, witnessing American repair crews at work was a profound shock. Many had grown up within a military culture that prized individual skill, meticulous craftsmanship, and the careful preservation of machinery. A damaged Bf-109, even with only minor hits, might sit idle for days, awaiting the attention of a skilled mechanic. The idea that a heavily shot-up P-47 could be fully restored in hours seemed almost impossible. POW accounts describe pilots staring in disbelief as crews removed engines, replaced wings, and reinstalled control surfaces with mechanical precision, all within the span of a morning. Pride and expectation collided with the brutal reality. Efficiency, not artistry, determined who stayed in the sky. Speed of repair was not merely an administrative feat, it was a tactical weapon. Aircraft ready for morning sorties directly increased Allied air superiority. The Luftwaffe, hampered by slower repair times, faced reduced sortie rates, leaving German cities and troops increasingly vulnerable. High turnaround rates meant damaged planes returned to combat quickly, preserving pilot experience and maintaining the momentum of bombing campaigns. Each repaired aircraft represented more than metal and engines. It was a tangible increase in operational capability that German commanders struggled to counter. American aircraft were designed with modularity in mind. Components such as engines, wings, and control surfaces were standardized, allowing quick replacements without extensive craftsmanship. German planes, in contrast, required intricate adjustments and time-consuming calibration. This difference made American aircraft inherently more repairable in the field. The technology of modular engines, prefabricated parts, and standardized assembly allowed U.S. crews to perform feats of repair speed that German pilots found almost miraculous. The engineering philosophy itself became a battlefield advantage. At the core of American success was leadership philosophy. Generals like Henry Hap, Arnold emphasized the importance of maintaining aircraft availability over individual accolades or perfectionism. Maintenance officers were empowered to streamline processes, prioritize mission readiness, and enforce 24-hour repair cycles. The mindset was simple but radical. Planes are weapons first, objects of craftsmanship second. Ground crews internalized this directive, knowing that speed directly affected air campaign outcomes. German observers noted the difference. While Luftwaffe pilots relied on the precision of slow, careful work, Americans operated with relentless pragmatism, translating doctrine into measurable superiority. Captured German airmen frequently described their incredulity in post-war interviews. One Luftwaffe pilot recounted watching a P-47 riddled with flak holes restored in under 6 hours. "I thought it was a trick of the eye," he said. Another noted that even minor mechanical faults on German aircraft required multiple days to correct, while the Americans seemed to treat broken planes as if they were toys. These accounts reveal not only admiration but psychological pressure. German pilots realized they were fighting against a system whose efficiency they could neither replicate nor resist. The speed of American repairs became an invisible but relentless adversary in itself. The psychological implications of rapid repair were profound. For American pilots, the knowledge that a damaged plane could be returned to combat quickly boosted confidence and morale. They could fly dangerous missions with reduced fear of permanent aircraft loss. For German pilots, the effect was the opposite: frustration, disbelief, and a sense of inevitability as their planes languished on the ground. Witnessing repair feats firsthand reinforced the perception of American superiority, not only in numbers, but in organization and execution. The morale gap widened, influencing engagements long before guns were fired. By mid-1944, the full weight of American logistical prowess became undeniable. After the D-Day landings, forward airfields in Normandy and Brittany were crowded with fighters and bombers returning from daily missions over France and Germany. German pilots, observing from nearby positions or recounting events after capture, were struck by the scale and speed of repairs. What had once taken days on a Bf-109 or FW-190 now occurred within hours on a P-47 or P-51. The contrast was impossible to ignore. One vivid episode occurred at an airfield near Cherbourg. A P-47 Thunderbolt, riddled with flak damage from a raid over Bremen, taxied back on 3 functional wheels and a shredded fuselage. Within 2 hours, crews replaced an engine, repaired control surfaces, and restored the landing gear. German observers, sent to inspect or monitor captured territory, documented their disbelief. The aircraft would fly again that afternoon. For pilots trained in the Luftwaffe's slower maintenance cycles, the scene was surreal. Precision and speed coexisting in ways previously considered incompatible. The shock extended beyond the mechanics. German pilots realized that operational tempo was no longer determined solely by aerial combat skill, but by the unseen efficiency of American ground crews. Each repaired aircraft meant another Allied sortie, more pressure on dwindling Luftwaffe forces, and a tangible erosion of German air superiority. The turning point was psychological as much as logistical. German aviators confronted the fact that their best efforts in the sky could be offset overnight by American repair capability. At these forward bases, the choreography was remarkable. Engines were removed and replaced by teams in coordinated shifts. Control cables were tensioned, hydraulics tested, and armament reloaded, all while other damaged aircraft were processed simultaneously. By sunset, the airfield hummed with activity, planes ready, pilots briefed, and sorties queued. German pilots could only watch, noting the stark contrast to their own airfields, where similar damage required days of waiting, improvisation, and laborious craftsmanship. This period marked the moment when the reality of American superiority, industrial, tactical, and organizational, fully crystallized. German pilots were no longer merely aware of it intellectually. They witnessed it in real time. The capacity to repair, refit, and return aircraft to combat became a decisive factor in air operations, altering the course of campaigns and reshaping expectations of what a modern air force could achieve. The intense pace, cultural shock, and operational consequences of this period set the stage for the second part of the climax, where the implications for the Luftwaffe become even more acute, and the scale of American efficiency becomes a strategic force in itself. By late summer 1944, the implications of American repair efficiency were impossible to ignore. The Luftwaffe, already weakened by pilot losses and fuel shortages, faced a mounting crisis. Planes that should have flown missions remained grounded, while Allied aircraft returned to the skies within hours. The operational tempo of the Americans created a relentless pressure that German pilots could neither match nor mitigate. At airfields across liberated France, P-51 Mustangs and P-47 Thunderbolts became symbols of this new reality. Bullet holes, torn control surfaces, and pockmarked fuselages vanished almost overnight. German pilots observed this with mounting disbelief. A Focke-Wulf FW-190 that had been operationally ready in 48 hours might now require a week. A heavily damaged P-47 was airborne again by morning. The efficiency gap was both tactical and psychological. German aviators recognized that the battle for the skies was increasingly fought on the ground as much as in the air. A striking example occurred during operations supporting the Battle of the Bulge. Allied bombers and fighters returned with extensive battle damage, yet forward depots repaired them in record time. Pilots noted the speed with awe. Engines swapped, hydraulic lines repaired, wings replaced. For the Luftwaffe, the delay in returning aircraft to service created a cascading disadvantage. Fewer operational fighters meant gaps in air coverage, missed interception opportunities, and rising Allied dominance. The logistical superiority became a strategic weapon in itself. The consequences extended beyond immediate combat. German commanders, desperate to maintain morale and operational continuity, could do little to offset the American advantage. Every night, the Americans rebuilt the planes that had challenged them during daylight, eroding the Luftwaffe's capacity to contest the skies. German pilots began to internalize a harsh truth. Technical skill and courage in flight could not compensate for systemic inefficiencies and industrial limitations. By autumn 1944, this dynamic had solidified. Forward airfields became a theater of unseen combat. Speed, coordination, and modular design versus meticulous but slow craftsmanship. German pilots and observers repeatedly testified that the Americans' ability to repair planes in hours, not days, was a decisive factor in Allied air superiority. It was not just technology, but doctrine, organization, and culture combined into a force multiplier that fundamentally altered the balance of power. This turning point, the recognition that American repair capability was both efficient and strategically decisive, now leads into the aftermath, where the operational, psychological, and cultural consequences for German pilots, the Luftwaffe, and the air war are fully revealed. By late 1944 and early 1945, the impact of rapid American aircraft repairs was fully evident. German pilots, witnessing or hearing accounts of Allied maintenance efficiency, faced a dual reality. Their own aircraft were increasingly grounded, while American planes returned to combat with remarkable speed. This disparity translated directly into operational dominance. Sortie rates for U.S. fighters and bombers remained high, sustaining continuous pressure on the Luftwaffe and German infrastructure. The human consequences were profound. German pilots experienced frustration and demoralization as their planes languished for days or weeks due to mechanical issues that American crews could solve in hours. Diaries and post-war interviews reflect this recurring theme: astonishment at the speed of repairs, disbelief at the scale of American organization, and a growing sense of inevitability as their own air force faltered. For many, survival in aerial combat was increasingly dependent not on skill or courage, but on industrial and logistical limitations outside their control. Operational statistics reinforce this shift. By mid-1944, serviceability rates for Allied fighters often exceeded 80%, while comparable Luftwaffe figures frequently fell below 50%. The difference in aircraft availability allowed the Allies to maintain persistent air superiority, directly affecting ground operations from Normandy to the Ardennes. German pilots noted that even minor damage could sideline their aircraft, creating gaps in defense that the Allies exploited repeatedly. Allied airfield reports emphasized the importance of morale and efficiency. Ground crews worked in continuous shifts, ensuring that damaged aircraft could be returned to flight status overnight. Supervision by officers like maintenance captains ensured that no bottleneck slowed repairs. The combination of abundant spare parts, trained personnel, and standardized procedures created a cycle of readiness that German forces could not match. For German pilots, the cumulative effect was unmistakable. They were fighting a system that repaired its losses faster than they could inflict them. As 1945 progressed, the strategic consequences of rapid American aircraft repairs became undeniable. The Luftwaffe, already weakened by pilot attrition, fuel shortages, and bombed-out infrastructure, faced a collapse in operational tempo. German fighters, sidelined by slow repairs, could not contest the skies effectively. Each repaired Allied aircraft represented not only a return to combat, but a multiplication of pressure on German forces. A relentless cycle that the Luftwaffe could neither halt nor fully comprehend. Post-war interviews with German pilots underscore the psychological weight of this disparity. Many recounted a sense of helplessness, witnessing Allied aircraft return mission after mission, while their own remained grounded. One pilot noted, "It was as if the Americans could rebuild the sky overnight. Our victories in flight were undone before the next day." The combination of awe, frustration, and strategic inevitability shaped post-war reflections and highlighted the critical importance of logistics in modern warfare. Operational reports from the 8th and 9th Air Forces confirm these observations. Repair turnaround times were routinely measured in hours. Engines swapped, control systems recalibrated, bullet-damaged fuselages replaced. Forward airfields became hubs of continuous activity, sustaining high sortie rates even in the face of heavy losses. German forces, in contrast, were hampered by damaged supply lines, insufficient manpower, and slower repair cycles, a cumulative disadvantage that directly contributed to the erosion of the Luftwaffe's effectiveness. The broader implications extended beyond immediate combat. U.S. maintenance doctrine, emphasizing speed, standardization, and modularity, set the foundation for post-war Air Force logistics. German observers recognized that American efficiency was not merely a wartime expedient, but a systematic approach to sustaining air power. It demonstrated how industrial capacity, organizational discipline, and cultural adaptation could transform the operational landscape. The human cost was apparent. German pilots' morale eroded as the reality sank in, and the Luftwaffe's inability to match the tempo foreshadowed the final collapse of German air defense. By highlighting these consequences, the aftermath paints a comprehensive picture of how American repair efficiency decisively shaped the air war. It provides a natural transition into the reflection, where the philosophical, operational, and cultural significance of these events is examined, concluding the story with a calm and grounded perspective on human resilience, technological innovation, and the decisive role of logistics. The story of German pilots witnessing American aircraft repaired in hours is more than a technical anecdote. It is a lens into the evolving nature of modern warfare. In the skies over Europe, skill, courage, and tactics mattered, but so too did the unseen infrastructure that enabled planes to return to battle. The rapid repair of damaged aircraft exemplified a shift in the calculus of air power. Victory depended not only on pilots and planes, but on the efficiency, coordination, and foresight of the support system behind them. For German pilots, the experience was a confrontation with a new reality. Their understanding of aircraft maintenance, painstaking, deliberate, and rooted in traditional craftsmanship, was challenged by American pragmatism and industrial scale. What had been considered a minor setback in their own operations became a critical advantage for the Allies. Speed, standardization, and relentless execution turned logistical support into a force multiplier, reshaping both strategy and morale. The broader lesson extends beyond World War II. Technology alone does not guarantee dominance. The systems, processes, and culture that sustain it are equally decisive. The Americans' ability to repair and redeploy aircraft quickly demonstrates how innovation in organization and logistics can rival the impact of firepower. For the Luftwaffe, the lesson was harsh. Technical skill and bravery in flight cannot compensate for systemic inefficiency. Ultimately, this story underscores the human dimension of warfare. Ground crews, officers, and pilots worked in concert, driven by doctrine, discipline, and purpose. German observers, confronted with this operational reality, were forced to reconcile pride with practicality. The rapid repair of aircraft was more than an operational feat. It was a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the quiet, decisive power of systems working seamlessly in service of a larger mission. In the end, the skies over Europe were won not only by those who flew, but also by those who ensured the planes would fly again, hour by hour, mission by mission.